So triggers are nothing but like these are the to implement any automation by writing a code. At the time we'll use a concept called triggers. Okay, so let's suppose if you have a requirement, like let's suppose when account is deleted, I need to create one contact. So means like we like one record is deleted, then we need to perform some other automation. Let's suppose sometimes we might have a requirement like if some record is edited, we need to perform some other task. If some field value matches to the specific criteria, we need to perform some other automation. If you want to build this kind of automation based on data changes happen in a system, we'll use concept called triggers. So for the triggers, what we need to have is we need to have a triggering condition. Based on some condition, we need to manipulate the data, or we need to perform several operations on the data. So for that, we'll use concept called triggers. With the triggers, what we can do is we can insert a record, update a record, even we can delete a record also. Okay, and we'll be having two different kinds of trigger contexts. Like we'll be having two, like we can execute trigger in a two ways. One is we'll be having before triggers, and second one is we are having after triggers. Okay, so the before triggers are nothing but, so before saving the record in the database, if you want to perform any automation, so let's suppose if you have an account record, we are changing account rating. Okay, so before changing, like we are giving some data, so and we are clicking on save button. So whenever we click on save button, before saving the data in a Salesforce system, if you want to perform some automation in a system, we'll use before triggers. After triggers are nothing but these are used whenever some data is modified, whenever the like operations like saved in a database, after performing save operation, if you want to perform any other operation, we'll use after triggers. Clear this? Are you clear with this? It's a very, very important thing. You need to understand where you need to use before triggers and where you need to use an after triggers. Clear? Or may I simplify it? Can I simplify it much more?
Yes.
Yes. So simple, like let's suppose if we are like we need to update an account record. If account rating is hot, we need to capture account name equals to, we need to add hot to at the end of the account name. Clear? Context is clear?
Yeah.
So at the time, what we need to do is like we are updating rating field on an account object only. While updating that field, we need to change the data corresponding to another field of the same object. Okay. So let's suppose if we, in this case, if we use after trigger, what happens is once you click on save button, rating field will update first. Then next, for the next time, it will update name. So at this time, what's happening? We are hitting database for two times. First saving, isn't it? Clear?
Yes.
So to avoid that problem, what we can do is if you are updating any field on a, like if you are performing, if you are checking condition and if you are updating field on the same object, at the time we need to use before context. Clear? Clear?
Yes.
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 Let's up,
Yes.
we'll be having second scenario like after triggers. The purpose of after triggers is, let's suppose if we are creating an account record, while creating an account record, directly we need to create a contact record with the same data. At that time, what we need to do? So before saving account in a contact, can we create a child contact? Is it possible?
No.
It's not possible, right? Without parent, there is no existence of children. Here also
Child.
same thing.
Yeah.
Without parent, there is no child. Like if you are creating that record based on a dependency. So at the time, what we need to do? Initially, we need to insert an account record. Then we need to create a contact record. So when we are creating contact record, after creating account record only, right? On such cases, we need to use an after triggers. Simple, remember a blind thing. So if you are updating a same record, same object record, at the time you can go with the before triggers. Based on some condition, if you are updating any other related record, you can use after triggers. Clear?
Yes.
So the next will be having trigger context variables. So like this, either this before or after triggers will be having these contexts: insert, update, delete, merge, upset, undelete. We can perform these operations by using triggers. Okay. So these are the different operations. We'll see these operations, don't worry. So you can see there are two types of triggers. You can see before triggers and after triggers. Implementation and considerations. So while implementing trigger, what are the rules you need to follow and what are the things you need to consider? You can go through this documentation. You'll get to know. Okay, these are the different things. Like I'll share you this blog in your WhatsApp group. Control C. I'll take it in a notepad plus plus. Okay. The next what we'll do is we'll see the scenario based question, like which kind of questions you'll be faced in an interviews. See, directly I'm sharing your knowledge. Along with that, I'm going in an interview perspective only. Is it fine? Like I am covering real time scenarios based on an interview perspective, so that it will be much helpful to you to build a career. Login.salesforce.com. So it's URL which we are using. So here I'm logging into the Salesforce system. So I'll write this code by taking like a best practice, Salesforce best practices. Okay, I'll follow the all real time things. Like I don't write a simple trigger directly. So if you practice simple trigger directly, you'll feel easy, but it won't be helpful to build any real time application. So whatever here I'm going to explain you, that is based on real time scenarios only. So initially I'm going to open developer console. Open link in new window. Yeah, okay. So prior to this, I'll write a question here. So my task is upon account creation, whenever we create an account, on the account, if industry field is not null, it should not be empty. And if it has value as media, at the time, what we need to do is then we need to update rating to hot. Rating to hot. Okay, clear? Is it clear? Question is clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So it is our scenario. We need to implement a trigger for this. So before creating trigger, we need to have an Apex class to handle a trigger. Though we can write an automation directly in a trigger, but it won't be helpful in a real time. Like we won't deploy it into like production. So if we implement functionality in developer console directly, see, if you are implementing some functionality in an anonymous window, simply we can execute it, but we can't save it in a like a cloud, right? So for that sake, like I'm following the best practices. So here I'll create an account trigger handler class for, sorry, yeah, initially I'll create an class. For this class, I'll keep a name like account trigger handler. Okay, it's my class name, account trigger handler. So after creating this class, whatever the requirement we are having, I'll build that requirement here. Okay, I'll build that requirement here. So what is our requirement? So what we need to do? What is our question statement? Whenever account rating is hard, so whenever upon account creation, if industry is not null, and if it has value like media, then we need to update rating as hot. It is our requirement. So for this, what we need to do? So initially we created an Apex class. On this Apex class, we need to create a method. We need to create a method. So that method name I'm keeping like an update rating. Public. So what I'll do is I don't want to return anything in an output. Static void. And here I'll keep a name like update rating. It is my method name. So which records we need to update? So which records we need to update? We need to update list of accounts which we are inserting in a Salesforce system. So whenever we are, let's suppose if we are inserting bulk records, there might be a collection of elements, right? Collection of account records, right? So that's why here I'm saying ACC list. I'm initializing variable like ACC list. Okay, here I'm creating a method. So after creating this method with a list of accounts, now what I'll do is I need to iterate through all the accounts. For account ACC, this name, like we need to iterate through all the records corresponding to account. Control C. Okay, so here we did a mistake. Account ACC, we need to take this value from ACC list collection. So while iterating through one and each and every value of this, we need to check the condition. Which condition we need to check? If ACC means single account. If single account in this dot industry field equals to null, not equals to null, sorry, it should not be null, right? And ACC dot industry equals to media. If this condition is satisfied, then what we need to do? We need to update a rating. So for that, what I am saying is ACC dot rating. We need to update rating to hot. Done. It's my requirement. I'm going to problems. Account trigger handler unexpected token. Where in which line? Fourth line. Second, third. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything is perfect. Now I'm saving this Apex class. Any doubts on this Apex class? Simple. We are creating a trigger handler class. In this trigger handler class, what we are doing is like whenever the record is created, what we are doing is we are taking all the collection of records, and on each and every created record, we are checking these conditions. If account industry is not equals to null, it should have some value. Along with the value, for the industry, it should have value like media. If these conditions are satisfied, then we need to replace account rating with a hot. Okay, we implemented a functionality. But now our requirement is we need to specify a condition requirement. Means when we need to execute this program, we need to specify, we need to write a trigger to context, like on which context we need to execute this Apex class. So for that, we need to create a trigger. Now I'll create a trigger. So I'm going to file again. I'm clicking on new. You can see Apex trigger. I'm clicking on Apex trigger. So while creating an Apex trigger, here we need to keep a trigger name. So here I'll write trigger name like account trigger. So remember, for the best practice, on one object, we should have only one trigger. On one object, we need to have only one trigger. So now here what I'll do is I'll write trigger on which object we need to take here? you'll be get all the objects, not only standard objects, you'll be get a custom objects also. I am choosing account. So if you have doubt, you can search here. Like you created COVID-19 something something, right? Those are also appear here. I'm going with account only. So by default, one trigger will be created with the default format. So the trigger, while creating a trigger, initially we need to use a trigger keyword. So it is coming in a different color, means it will understand it's like a trigger. And whatever the name we kept for a trigger, that name is coming here. On which object we are creating trigger, that is coming here. On which context you want to execute this trigger, you can specify that context here. So when we need to perform this action, before inserting a record in a database, before inserting means before creating a record in a database, we need to perform these actions. Okay, clear? So here you can write different context before insert. So when we need to use before insert means, if you are while creating a record, if you want to add any other field values on a same object, we can use before. Same object means remember like before, different objects means remember like after. So before inserting a record, we need to enter into this trigger. The next here will be having trigger context variables. So here I'll write trigger context variables. I'm going to this block so that you can be able to understand. See here, these are the trigger context variables. Is executing. Is executing means like all these trigger context variables are used to check the conditions, whether that condition is met or not, whether that condition is meeting or not. To check that requirement, we'll use this context variable. So we'll be having different trigger context variables like is executing, is insert, is update, is delete, is before, is after. Like that, whatever the trigger classes will be having, for all will be having this. Okay, these are the context variables. If that specific set criteria met, it will give you output like true. Otherwise, it is false. And these are very important thing. It's a very, very important thing. New. New means returns a list of new versions of yes object records. Let's suppose we are working on a code where what we are doing is we are having a rating field. So we are updating rating field right now. So previously, let's suppose rating is cold. Now you are updating rating to hot. So this new context, what it contains is, it will contains whatever the value you updated recently. And the old is also a context variable. The purpose of this old context is it holds the previous context. So before modifying the record, what will be the value corresponding to that specific field that will be present in a old context. All the old values of the record will be present in old context, and whatever the new values you are updating, that will be present in a new context. Clear? It is about context variables. And this context values will be stored in the form of collections. Okay, this new or old will be present in the form of collections. Okay, now I'm going to the code. So here, what I'll do is, here I'm building a trigger. So initially, what I want to do is this trigger, whatever the trigger we built here, if this trigger is insert or not, like whether our condition is met or not. If trigger dot is insert condition is satisfied or not, means like if some record is inserting in a system, this will be satisfied, it will be come up like a true, or else it will be come up like a false. And along with this condition, I need to check another condition also. Here I need to check another condition also. My another condition is, and trigger dot is before, whether it is the is before context or not. If these two contexts are satisfied, then only we need to call that specific apex class, whatever we created. Okay, what is that apex class? What is our apex class? Account trigger handler, right? So we need to call a method corresponding to this class. Dot here update rating. I'm calling this method. Whenever this condition met, then only I'm calling this method. And in this, let's suppose if we consider this apex class, in this, what will be the thing here? What is the parameter it is expecting? It is expecting list of accounts, right? It is expecting list of accounts, right? Same thing here, we can specify like a trigger dot new. So whatever the new values we are giving here, with the new values, it needs to update, right? So here, if you specify trigger dot new mean, it will be understand like collection of new values. Okay, it will be understand like this. I'm saving this trigger. Any doubts on this? Is it difficult or easy?
Can
Or
you explain the condition you put here in the if statement, like trigger dot is insert and trigger dot is before?
yes. So we created a trigger. First line is clear, right?
Yes.
So coming to the second line, what we are doing is we are checking the context. If this criteria is met, then only I need to perform this action. Okay. So first condition is we are checking whether the record is creating or not in a system. Trigger dot is insert means we are inserting any new record or not. If we are inserting new record, then only we need to perform this action. So initially I specified a condition like upon creating an account only we need to perform this action, right? So that's why here I specified it. Is insert means if account record is creates, then only it will perform this action. If we won't keep this, what happens is, though if we update a record, it will perform same thing. It will update a rating, but I should not. I don't need that requirement. After this, after checking whether account record is creating or not, when we need to find the trigger. So whether we are in a before context or not, means before saving the database only we are performing this action or not. We need to check it. So whether it is a before context or not, we need to check it. If it is a before context and if we are creating record, then only we need to call that specific apex method. Clear?
Yes.
And yeah. So now shall we check this functionality whether it is working or not? Yes. So here I'll go to the triggers. See, from here also you can find the triggers, whatever you created. I'll show you that. You can see trigger, apex triggers, you can see. You'll be having different options. Edit, delete. From here also you can edit and delete it. So I'm clicking on edit. So from here you can inactivate or activate this trigger also. Is active. By default it is an active. So if you untick it, it will become inactive. Means this functionality won't be work. Though if you have an Apex class. Okay. So it is like a flows only. Like if you activate the flow, then only it will work in the background, right? It is also same thing. So if it is activated, it will be work in the background. So now what I'll do is I'll go to the accounts. Okay, now I'm going to create a new account. So test trigger. I don't want to keep any other field values. But I'm saving it. So if you go to this record detail page, so if you go search a rating field, yeah, nothing is there in a rating, isn't it? So here in this we did not kept any value for industry. That's why rating value is not coming. Let's suppose if I create any new record. Now what I'll do is I'll keep trigger one and I'll keep industry value also. Now industry equals to media, right? I'll keep it like media. Type industry, right? Media, and I'm saving it now. you can see by default rating is coming like a hot without giving that value. Make sense? Clear? First context is clear.
Yes.
I'll dig deep into it. Like I'll explain you a bit complex scenarios now. So next question, I'll search for a question. Give me a minute. So for you, can I give an assignment on this? Yeah, I'll write an assignment question here so that it will become much easy to you. So any doubts on a previous assignment? Upon opportunity creation, if amount field is not null and opportunity amount is greater than 1 lakh, then populate opportunity description as hot opportunity. Does this question is clear to you? Does this question is clear? So while upon creating an opportunity, you need to check whether amount field is not null or not. If it is not null, you need to check whether it has a value of 1 lakh or not. If it has value like 1 lakh, then we need to populate opportunity description field value as an hot opportunity. It is an assignment question to you. The next, automatic copy account billing address into account shipping address. Okay, it's not that much important question. I'll go with another question. Okay, so I'm not going with this before insert again. Like I'll take another scenario. So create a related contact when account is created. I'll explain you this question. You'll be implement same thing on an opportunity. Create related contact when account is created. Okay, create a related contact when account is created. Question is clear, right? So in this case, which context we need to use?
After.
After context we need to use. So here I'm adding in this code itself. So we are having trigger on the same object. That's why I'm building it here itself. Sorry. After insert only, right? We need to perform this action. After insert, we need to perform this action. So prior to these, what we need to have? What we need to have? We need to have a method, right? Like to create a contact, we need to have an apex class. So when this condition met, then we need to call this apex class, right? So for that, what I'll do is I'll take same apex class. In the same apex class, I'll add in another method. Is it fine? So here I'll add another apex method. Public void create contact. Okay. So to create a contact, which data we need to pass to it? Like we need to pass list of accounts. Same thing I'll take. So how many accounts we are inserting? For all those accounts, we need to create a contact. Okay, we created a method. So far everything is good. So while creating a contact, so what we need to do? So here we'll be having ACC list. It's fine. Now our code should be bulkified one. Means let's suppose if you have a single like a bulkified one means like we should not perform lot of DML operations for each and every iteration. All the DML operations we need to perform in a single iteration. So for that, what I'll do is I'll say, mhm, yeah, here I'll define a list of contacts. Same thing in a previous session, we did same thing, right? Like we created when account record, when account is created, we automatically created contact. But here we are doing same thing on some condition. Okay, so list of contact. So here I'll say CCL, like like I'll give name like this. Yeah, CCL. It's fine. Equals to new list of contact. Here I'm creating an object for this. So after creating this object, what I'll do is simply I need to iterate through all the accounts. For account ACC colon ACC list, we need to do this thing. While iterating through this, what I want to do is we need to create a contact for each and every account, right? So for that, what we need to do, we need to initialize a contact inside it. Contact C equals to new new contact. Okay, so in this new contact, what I'll do is I initialize this object for a contact. In this, we need to specify a mandatory field values. So if you consider contact, so we need not to specify all the field values, but I'm specifying here first name equals to ACC dot name. Like it is not a required field, that's why I'm not adding these. Simply I'll say last name in place of first name. Okay, last name is a mandatory field, that's why I'm adding this. And for this contact, I'll add an account ID equals to ACC. Like whatever the account we created, whatever the for the account, whatever the ID is present, that should be my account ID. These two only the required fields. That's why I'm adding these two fields data only. Now I want to add this contact in CCL list. Add for which we need CCL dot add. We need to add the contact, whatever we are creating in a tab. Okay. So after doing this, we need to check whether this list contains any values or not. Here we need to check whether this list contains any values or not. 15th line showing some error. Which error we are having here? Oh,
It
here
is
we
script.
specify.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Now
And it will be C.
CCL, right? It's
We,
select.
like instead of add con, it should be C.
Sorry, yeah. It's C. Like we defined, we stored this contact in variable C only. Okay, perfect. Now what we need to do, so we wrote a condition, we are creating a contact here based on account data. So after creating these, we are adding this contact to this list, that is CCL. Now here what I want to do is we need to check a condition, like whether this list is empty or not, or whether this list contains any values or not. So for that, what we can do is we need to check CCL dot size, if this size is greater than 0 or not. If it is greater than 0, then only we need to insert a contact. Insert CCL. Otherwise, we need not to perform this action. We need not to waste one DML action. Any doubts on this? Yes, any doubts on this? So,
No.
yeah, after this, what we'll do is we'll implement a trigger on this. So we wrote a code, we'll be having automation. But to fire this automation, we should, like in a backend, we need to check a condition, right? For that, we'll write a trigger context. We'll do that now. So first line is clear. We said after insert, done, perfect. Till here, it is corresponding to this one. Now, here what I want to do is, I want to check this condition. If, again, I'll write a if only, trigger dot. Initially, we need to check whether it is an insert operation or not. If it is an insert operation, and along with this insert operation, what we need to check, which condition we need to check, whether this trigger is which context it should have after context, right? We need to check whether it is an is